what do you need to do to get yourself back into your body? And that's the dance. And that's what we're going through right now, because the shock waves are real. The level of trauma that is in the field is massive, and it's impossible to completely shield ourselves. So we have to learn that dance of in and out.
Welcome to the Angelic Frequency Podcast. We are your hosts, Christina Aroche
and Luisa Velez, and today we had a very special guest. Her name is Alison Rothman. Alison is a soulful healer, an intuitive coach, and the founder of Embody My Life. Her work weaves somatic healing, embodiment, and spiritual integration in very amazing, beautiful ways. And we had an amazing conversation about what embodiment looks like, especially for women. It's super interesting. Let's dive in.
Hi, Alison. Welcome to the podcast. We are so excited to have you here. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here.
We're really excited to have you, and we love your work, but potentially for our listeners who are not familiar with you and who you are and what we do, maybe that's a great place to start. Just walk us through your journey and your practice.
Great. Well, it is Friday afternoon after a really long week, so bear with me with my words. But, I live in Boulder, Colorado. I've been here about 25 years, and nearly 30 years ago, I was already in mix of the holistic wellness world. I was a yoga practitioner and grew up a dancer and meditator and all that, and hit rock bottom in my own life. And I was in my early 20s and ended up in a residential treatment center for eating disorder recovery. And it was really the moment where all these different pieces came together for my journey in my own healing, and then also in, eventually healing others, and I trained as a body worker just to have that skill. But really, I'm in the coaching realm, holistic, embodied, body-centered coaching, bringing a lot of different pieces together through my own journey and through, different trainings, etc. So I work one-on-one with women, and I also run dance movement programs and run women's retreats. And really, my mission is to help to empower women so that they can really rise up in their lives and show up and really meet whatever is coming towards them from a place of integrity and alignment and truth. So just a little snippet.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. And I've seen that a huge part of your work is really that embodiment piece and the somatic work and things like that. Like you said, you train in those modalities and things. And I'm curious to know, is there any specific, because there's so much I feel when it comes to somatics and body work and all that. So is there anything in particular that has really drawn you or that you use a lot within your work? Or, for example, for me, breathwork has been a really cool, eye-opening experience when it comes to the connection with the breath and my body and things like that. So I'm curious what tools are in your toolbox and what you use.
Yeah, there's a lot. So, at the end of the day, really, it's about me supporting women in coming into the present moment, and whatever that is, if it's taking a moment, taking some deep breaths and really letting their nervous system settle. If it is movement to get them integrated into their bodies, it's very habituated for us to exit, especially when something comes towards us. So it's like, what can we use to keep us anchored in the present moment? And for me, meditation is a huge part of my process and my practice, and has, become non-negotiable over the last 15 years. But for others, it could be, a lot of other different things. So I like to look on, all the different levels. It's like, what are you ingesting? and how can we modify that so that you can feel more connected to yourself and more connected to your body? I'm a big proponent of herbal medicine and flower essence therapy. And it's like anything that can just start to tweak things a little bit. But like I said, everybody's different and everybody resonates on a different level. So that's why you kind of have to be creative in the holistic realm to, because some people are just not receptive to certain things, like, nope, I refuse to drink herbal tea. I will only drink coffee. Okay, fine, let's do something else. I mean, that's kind of a benign example, but the level of disembodiment in our society is epidemic, and for so many reasons, trauma, addiction, et cetera. And I'm kind of on a tangent right now, so just interject as
No,
needed. But
please go on.
Great. Yeah.
okay.
No, I can hear.
Okay. You're nodding your head, so I feel
Yeah.
like you're with me.
Yeah.
So, I am always just trying to, okay, what can I try with this person to help them to feel themselves right now in this present moment, even if it's for a fleeting second, and then they're out again. But those little micro moments of connection add up, and they start to create new pathways in our state of being, and they start to shift our neurotransmitters so that we can acclimate to being in the present more than not, right? And then we start to notice, oh, I'm gone. Where did I just go? Okay, I'm coming right back here. So this feels like a good moment to pause. Yeah.
It's so challenging, and I was just strongly nodding my head because, and I think the fact that, or at least in what our circumstances are, light workers and healers and people like that, we tend to live in, and women, like, in generally speaking, we live in our heads so much, and we could be doing 1,000 things at the same time. We're doing grocery shopping while we're with our kids, but we're all over the place. So embodiment really feels like something so important and instrumental, even for a spiritual practice. And I apologize because I don't know where I heard you say this, or it was in your newsletter, but talking about spiritual, like the body as spiritual gateway. So maybe you can walk us through what that, as a concept, what that means to you. What do you mean by that? And someone just starting to do this kind of work, how can they trust that they're creating that connection?
Well, first of all, you're on my email list. That makes me so happy. I had no idea. You pour yourself out. You have no idea if
Absolutely.
anybody's reading anything. So
Yeah,
thank
like,
you.
am I
Yeah.
shouting into the void? No, you're not. I really
Okay.
that's
Okay,
part of
great.
your newsletter, and
Yeah.
we read it, and it's great.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you. So the body as a spiritual, what did I say? The body as a gateway.
A spiritual gateway. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, if you think about it, I mean, our bodies, this is our home, So yes, we can certainly do spiritual practices that are connecting us, to the divine energy, and that's critical. We need to, I think, but not everybody does, in my experience. But if we negate our bodies and what it is our bodies are saying to us, then we remain in a state of disconnect. So to me, our bodies are the gateway towards just a higher way of living, a more empowered way of living, a more, I'm all about this authentic, aligned, integrated way of living. And we cannot, I mean, to me, we cannot claim to be on a spiritual path and ignore this home that we're in, And so by connecting in, we gain insight to so much more of living on this human plane. So, to me, they just go hand in hand. I don't know if that answered your question completely, but yeah.
But no, yeah, that's a great way to get started. For sure.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And I feel like also the body, I mean, in my personal journey and experience, and I know for many people as well, oftentimes we start to develop illness or chronic conditions or whatever that essentially leads us to being like, wait a second, like, what's wrong? What's going on? We tried, maybe Western medicine, things like that, and it just doesn't give us the root cause and the answer. And I feel like that was, at least for me, that was a huge turning point on my journey many years ago now, where I had chronic eczema, and that was actually what led me to like having a deeper connection with my body, and realizing now, looking in hindsight, how disconnected I was. And so I'm curious, from your perspective, Alison, and in your work with clients and things, what are some signs of that disembodied or disconnected, or like what, because chronic illness is just one example. I feel like there's many different ways. The other example that I was thinking of as we were speaking is just social media and our phones, and like that creates such a disembodied experience too.
Oh my God. Yeah.
So what do you commonly see in people, and how do you help them kind of navigate through that?
Well, thank you for sharing that. And, skin stuff, it's liver, it is grief, it is, it's so many different things that are coming up and out through the skin and showing in that way. And yeah, I mean, to me, it's about starting to look at what are the energetic drains that you're experiencing in your life, and oh my God, I mean, I am admitting I have been glued to my phone in the last many weeks because I cannot stop. It is like, it's not good, and I see it and I feel it in myself. I'm like, why am I so tired? Oh, because my energy is being, in there, whereas when I actually step away at this, just following on your example, when I actually step away from the phone, when I encourage people to don't go right to your phone and first thing in the morning, go sit I've been trying to get my partner to do this for 4 years, but whatever, that's a whole other thing. But like, really go sit in meditation. If you can't get up and actually sit in meditation, at least lay there, put a hand on your belly, a hand on your heart, take some deep breaths, drop into yourself, and then just see what the impact is. And our bodies they speak to us, if we listen. So we will know if something is off, if you're tuned in, right? But if you're not, if you're just numbing with food, with social media, people numb with exercise. People are like, oh, I'm embodying but they're over exercising, therefore they're numbing. You can definitely be in motion and be disconnected. So to me, and what I see in my practice, what I see in myself is to start to track how you feel. Our bodies do not lie to us, How do you feel after having a conversation? How do you feel after being on your phone incessantly for an hour? How do you feel after eating whatever it is you ate? How do you feel after, reading something that is deeply disturbing? What do you need to do to get yourself back into your body? And that's the dance. And that's what we're going through right now, because the shock waves are real. The level of trauma that is in the field is massive, and it's impossible to completely shield ourselves. So we have to learn that dance of in and out, okay, whoa, that was a lot. I'm going to go take a walk in the trees and get myself grounded, and just kind of let that stuff roll off. And so it's this, fine tuning. And like I said, everybody's different. Everybody has a different pathway in.
That's so interesting, and maybe all of it. But one thing where I want to maybe go back a little bit is where you were mentioning how certain diseases or certain conditions are mirroring something somatic or something that's moving through our body. In your experience and in your practice, what are the most common things? And can you correlate for us some of the, like, I don't know, top 5 things that you see of ailments, and what does that mean, just for people to, generally speaking, have a sense of that?
Yeah. I mean, the most common, I would say, are digestive issues, and, I primarily work with women at this juncture, and, a woman who is struggling with their digestion, I'm always like, what are they not able to digest in their lives? It's not just food, it is not. And it's not, oh, I'm taking all the right supplements, I'm doing all the things. What are you not processing? What are you not letting yourself feel? and that can show up in so many different ways, but digestive is a huge one. Headaches, and there's, I mean, so many reasons for a headache, but, I'm in my menopausal years, so hormones are a big factor with women, but it can be a lot of other things. They're two in their head. They're not dropped down into their body. It's like out of the head into the body, dropping the energy down. Insomnia, big one, and to me, again, it's always coming back to this place of what am I not processing in my system? What do I need to keep moving through me so that I can rest at night, and really taking it seriously, and that kind of leads into this self-care piece. And especially as mothers, as women, we have to, I always tell clients, bookend your days. I know I went on a different direction, but but it's good. Bookend your days, that are for you. So the morning, like I said, meditation is a huge part of my life. If you can write something that you drop into yourself, and then at night in preparation for sleep, just like we do with our children. Well, I have a teenager, so I don't do that with him anymore, but we prepare them for sleep, and that involves getting into the body, it always comes back to that. So if you're struggling with sleep, it's not necessarily, oh, I need to go take a drug. It is, I need to really get my system in check. And the imbalances that our systems feel, kind of chronically, I mean, just from the environment, from the stress of life, all of it, it shows up in so many different physical ways. And one of them, common is people don't sleep well, and do you struggle with sleep? Either of you?
I do.
Depends.
Ish.
Not
Yeah.
it's a little
Yeah,
here and there.
but it's just I'm doing it to myself though. Like
Right.
I'll be on my phone doing one thing, doing the other. Just
Right.
I'm at that stage. I have a 4-year-old, so I just want my life back so hard. So then
Yeah.
I'm just creating time for myself. It's
Yeah.
just an excuse not to go to bed, but I'm like, okay, this is my moment to read the book,
Mhm.
watch the movie, be on social
Mhm.
media,
Mhm.
whatever.
It's your time. I
It's
get
my
it.
time. So
Yeah.
that's what I keep telling myself. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
avoid, and even in bed, I'm like, this is a great time for that audiobook. And I go to sleep listening to
Yeah.
something. So I'm just
Yeah.
chronically avoiding.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we all do it. Whatever. But it's even, I was on a hike this morning, and all of a sudden out of the blue, my right ankle has been killing me. I did nothing, literally nothing. I was hobbling along, and I'm like, do you know Louise Hay's work?
Yeah.
From forever ago,
Mhm.
right? So the right side, is our masculine side. It's forward movement. So I start asking myself, what is holding me back from moving forward, and the answers did not 100% come clear, but I have to say that I stayed with it, and now my ankle's fine. I mean, literally, I was like, do I need to go see a doctor? Do I need to put on a brace? And now there's no pain, So for whatever reason, not for whatever reason, for many reasons, our minds and our bodies are very connected. So yeah, so I think that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah, I love that. And I wanted to bring in a piece that you mentioned a little bit briefly, and I want to kind of bring it in because I feel like we've been sharing here. There's a lot, obviously, that's happening personally, our personal lives, like kids, work, responsibilities, stressors, whatever. But then there's also that collective layer too, right? That we're navigating. There's our personal life that's already whatever. And then add on top of that the collective. And so, and it's like you were saying, we have to stay informed. We can't just put ourselves into a bubble or live under a rock and pretend that none of these things are happening in the world. And also then there's also the level of, well, how do we navigate these situations that bring so much emotional pain to us, hearing about what's going on in the news or what's happening? And so what do you suggest, or what would you say to someone who's navigating through that, who's like, I can't turn away from the news or turn away from these things that I'm hearing in the world, and I want to stay informed and help in whatever way I can, and also it's taking a toll on me and I can't sleep at night now, and all the things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's so much to say. And I mean, I actually just did a video on Instagram this morning, just spontaneously, because, I mean, this latest school shooting, I think anybody who's a mom who sends their kid to school, it's like, it's so horrific on so many levels. And it just does not feel like the intensity is letting up at all. And we have to figure out a way to stay balanced, and to stay connected. And to me, choosing to not pay attention is privilege because, and that's just my opinion. I feel like we have a moral responsibility to stay awake during these times. And this is our children's future. I mean, this is serious business. And so, I am all about practices that drop us into our bodies, that calm the nervous system, that provide us with the opportunity to be grounded and anchored in ourselves. That does not mean we don't waver out, but it takes that consistency and diligence to recognize, okay, I've reached my quota here. I cannot take on anymore. I cannot take in anymore. I'm putting my phone to rest for the next hour. It's like having boundaries with ourselves. And I'm going to go step outside and get some fresh air. I'm going to move my body. I'm going to call a friend. I'm going to drink water. I mean, it's like back to basics. I'm going to make some nice herbal tea. But it is this dance that we're all walking, of like how to stay conscious, awake, present, while not like becoming so consumed and completely drained by just the constant assault on humanity that is happening right now. So I'm right in it with you all, just trying to find my own way. And, I'm constantly just kind of leaning into the tools that I have within me. And every day is different. And so I think that that's a big piece of this is to like give ourselves some grace and give each other some grace and some permission. Like, there's been some days where I'm like 7 p.m. I'm like in my pajamas. I've got the tea going on. I'm just like done. I don't want to, unfortunately I still have to be a mom and a partner and all those things, but I cannot engage with the outside world. I've reached my limit for the day, because I'm also supporting, women who are going through that, who are navigating this time as well. So I think it's just this ongoing conversation that we have with ourselves. And, and I'm all about building community and, actually just launched this online version of what it is that I'm doing here because I just feel the greater need for that. We have to stay connected to each other. I feel like it's essential for us to have those places where we can just drop the armor and just be real. Yeah, this fucking sucks. I am like devastated about what happened this week. I don't know what to do with it, but I'm just going to name it, not to be fixed, but just to be seen and heard. So, I think it's multifaceted and every day is new territory, and I say to my teenager, he had a rough day the other day and I was just like, tomorrow's a new day, we're going to start as fresh as we can and just be in the moment and see what is needed in that, in that new space. So, yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Like, absolutely resonate with everything that you're sharing. It's hard and it is moment to moment navigation. But one of the things that you mentioned that I really loved is the connection and community piece, because I feel like that is so huge, especially in this day and age, especially with AI, especially with all the things, it feels like such an important piece. So maybe if you want to share a little bit more about that part of your work and what you do. It sounds like you do it right now in person a lot, right? Locally, and that you're expanding it globally, I guess you could say. Online. You want to share more about what you've noticed in terms of being able to hold space in that way with other women and like what have you found to be the most healing around that community space?
Yeah, I mean, I could talk a whole long time about
Go
this.
Please
for it.
do.
Yes.
That's what we're here for.
Yeah, so I was a single mom for 11 years and was very isolated, very alone, very much felt like I was on the outside of everything, like just didn't feel that inclusion in any community, not his school, not this dance community that I was in, yoga, nothing, nowhere. So, as soon as my son became old enough and didn't need me as much, I knew back then that I was on this mission to bring women together, of all walks in life, a place, a safe container where women could come and be real, because I did not have that for so long. And it really took a toll on me. So really, I felt like the pieces kind of clicked in 2020 during COVID. And I started a virtual women's circle. And I was totally resistant to doing it because I was like, there's no way we can sit in a circle through a screen. Well, the circle ran for 4 years and it was amazing and completely life changing for these women, and just kind of gave me the confidence that I can still hold the space even through the screen. Simultaneously, I'm just kind of giving you a little background. Simultaneously, I started bringing women together locally here, once all the stuff stopped with the COVID, and just, learned. And even before that, in the retreats I was running pre-COVID, you know, we would do the practices and it was wonderful to practice together. But there was something that, like, I could see visibly women were able to just exhale a little deeper when they were sitting in circles, and in a way in which they could be their real selves and not be interrupted and not be given advice or told to, that something they were doing was wrong or not the right way or whatever it was. I was like, wow, this is so needed, just this opportunity for women to come together in community where we can talk about whatever is going on for us. I mean, I still in these I ran a retreat in July. I was in tears for a good chunk of the circles. I mean, stuff was moving through me too, and it was so healing for me, even in that role, to be able to look up and see, oh, wow, like these women are listening to me. They hear me. They see me. And they also value who I am as a woman, as a mother, as a partner, as a human. And so, to me, it's almost the missing link within communities, and, especially today, like there's so much division. There's so much division. There's so much so much angst amongst people that quite often we bottle things up, and I mean, I can't, this is a generalization, but I have found it is rare for women to have friendships in which they can 100% be themselves. I think I have like one, but, we don't see each other that much, so, and I value that very much so. But this is like a different level that's almost hard to put into words, because we are dropped so deeply into our bodies because we do these practices together and we ride these waves together. And I have seen, like, I mean, it touches me, like miracles from, I'm thinking of one client in particular who came in and was so just shut down and so distrusting of women. And she came to a retreat of mine, and oh my God, like completely different woman. And she comes to the dances and she sits in the circles and she shares. And, it was so scary. And it's scary to share in circles. So, that all these pieces are what has just enlivened my mission to bring women together. And I know through the screen is not ideal, but even we're sitting here and like, I feel super connected to both of you, and we can go there. And so I feel like I didn't totally answer your question completely because I just went on my own tangent. But yeah, so I have started this, a membership where it involves the dance, because I'm kind of obsessed with the dance right now. The dance, it involves writing and it involves sitting in circles. And I believe that we need community more than ever. And so, yeah.
I love that so much. And just you mentioning the circles and like the women sitting together, I was just like, oh my gosh. And we've had guests in the past talking about sisterhood and circles and things like that. And it was a similar, very similar feeling just like in our conversation of feeling activated just by you mentioning that and feeling that. And just, it's a very powerful experience for sure.
Yeah, I will just say one more thing is that I've also sat in circles that were not safe. And, so I would just be, rather than like all women's circles are healing, some of them can do more harm than good, and so I take it very seriously about creating a safe container, with, ground rules. And, there's certain ways that I do the circles, that I hold the space in the circles where women do feel safe and they are able to, shed some layers of shame or judgment or whatever it is, and really do leave feeling more empowered in themselves. And I just did I did a pop-up event. Oh, actually I shouldn't have said that. I did an event a couple of weeks ago, and there was a circle happening, and I was made aware that sometimes it's very difficult for people to sit in quiet together without trying to fill the void. And that is also medicine, is just being able to, we're just going to sit until somebody's ready to speak without having to fill that. But there was a participant who really was having a hard time with that. So she kept interjecting, and I had to, it was her first time with me, and, she totally owned it. But, relationships bring up everything. And, yes, with our intimate people, but also in communities. And so there's always this, I use the word dance a lot. There's always this dance for me as the facilitator to be tracking, like what is going on? What are the dynamics, who I can tell, because we get triggered by each other. We just do. Yes, we can get inspired and enlivened, but we can also be very triggered. So it's complex. It's complex, but I also know that it's medicine and really, really needed.
Yeah.
These workshops sound like an event sound like just such a magical container of so many things. Can you just, out of curiosity, can you just walk us through what a retreat looks like? What happens there? What are the practices? I'm guessing there's some dance, but what are other things that happen on a workshop like that?
Yeah, great question. So, I mean, it depends on the length. I have one coming up in January that's a week, and it's just like amazing because everything is just so spaced out. There's no rush for anything, because I always had these goals of like, I want to get these women to the other side, and we're going to go through some stuff, in between. But so, we start out usually our days with meditation, quiet meditation, and writing. I'm a big believer in the morning pages. It's just this psychic emptying, and always amazing food, like beautiful, clean, delicious food. And then we usually have, I try to always give some spaciousness, a little pause. I had one participant say, she articulated so well. She said it was this experience of coming inward, outward, and forward, and so, there's just that relationship with self too. Okay, because some people love the connection and they're very, extroverted, but others are very introverted and they need to step away from the group too, because we're kind of like moving as a unit. We usually do, then we do, a practice. It's either dance or yoga. The yoga I teach is very, very mellow, like super unwinding. Like gone are the days of me like putting in a whole lot of effort in my yoga practice. I'm like, life is a lot of effort. I do not need to be like proving anything to anybody about anything that I used to be able to do with my body. So, and Time for writing again. I always have art supplies out so that, because as we get into our bodies, as we move the energy, as we unwind, stuff comes up. And sometimes we have words. There's a lot of people who just sit and write, but others don't necessarily have the words. So they just need to go and draw or color or paint or whatever it is. We always have a collective altar set up that, women bring things for, because we do a couple ceremonies and rituals, but they also, add to them. There's always, cards there to draw. And, it's just kind of like the landing pad where all the stuff kind of gets fed into there. It's this like co-creation. And obviously we have a nice, long, deep women's circle. More food. I'm in Mexico. I kept joking. I'm like, okay, it's time for our next feeding. And, and then there's always in the afternoon, just some breath, it's spaciousness. Some people take a nap, some people in Mexico was fabulous because we would hang out by the pool. Some people just take a walk, some people just need quiet. Some people want connection, want to finish. Sometimes I have an art project going and sometimes people want to work on that. And then we have our afternoon practice, usually like 4:30. And that's whichever we didn't do in the morning. So it's usually either restorative yoga or dance. And then, dinner. And then our after dinner program is sometimes, there are different rituals and ceremonies we do. We do a fire ceremony in Mexico. It was down on the beach. It was like the coolest thing. Play music, dance around the fire. It's a lot of process and there's tears and there's sharing, but it's also a lot of joy. I mean, laughter, like from, because you're so raw and there's no like pretension. So people are just connecting from their like most authentic selves. And so there's all of it, there's uncontrollable laughter and there's weeping and there's, it's the whole gamut. And so, every day just kind of flows into that. Sometimes the evening program is nothing, sometimes people just need nothing. Sometimes it's candlelight practice, sometimes it's a dance party at the end of one of our ceremonies. It's all about like calling in, and I put on like fun music and we like have just like a rowdy dance party. So yeah, so that's just kind of a taste of it.
That's amazing. And it sounds to me a lot like, well, of course, there's a lot of structure and thought behind all the things that you do, but it sounds to me like it's so powerful when we are like outside of our day-to-day lives, our routines, or who I am at home with my partner, with my daughter, at work, all those things, and we just are. And we're just hanging, just giving ourselves the space to be. And how powerful can that be? If you want to dance, dance. If you want to yoga. If you want to just sit quiet, the power of a nap. Having had a nap in years, I have a nap, and I'm like, I don't even remember my last nap. So just the power of being without all that stuff. It's just
absolutely. It's like giving yourself permission to like really listen, tune in to what you need and honoring it. And that's what I always say. I'm like, even in the dance, when we're in the like height of like the more ecstatic time, I'm like, if you're like, no chance, and you just need to go lay down and like roll around or put your legs up the wall, please do. Because you're not alone with that. So many women just have to push through and keep going. And this is an opportunity to really give yourself permission to honor exactly what you need and where you are.
That's amazing. I love it so much. I wanted to ask you something because we've talked about community and the group experience of it all, but just trying to come back to our listeners with potentially how would that look like on an individual level. What are some of the ways in which you advise people to just have a personal practice at home, and what would that look like?
So meaning just for just anybody in their lives,
I'm not in a retreat, I can't go away for a week, but if I'm at home in my day-to-day, what can I do?
Great question. And my business is called Embodied Life because I am all about the practical. As I mentioned, I was a single mom for 11 years, and like all I had was my life to figure out how to keep myself resourced and grounded in some really challenging experiences. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't going away for a week on retreat, no way. I would have loved to have, but I was not at that juncture, so I'm always like, all right, let's take a look at how your life is set up and where you are. Like, how are you feeling? Are you, what are you needing? What do you feel like is missing? And then it's like, how can you squeeze into the crevices, is what it becomes, these little practices. And especially with little kids, you both have little kids?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. Those years are insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're crazy, right? They're so exhausting. It like actually accessing yourself becomes like a job in and of itself. I get it. And then they become teenagers and they don't want to have anything to do with you. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The opposite of this.
But especially in those early years, and I shared with you that I'm a big meditator, and that really started. My kid was little. I was on my own with him from the time he was 1, and I was drowning, and I was like, and he didn't sleep, and he was like up for the day at like 5 a.m. Like it was
One of
insanity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just declared, I was like, okay, I have to do something drastic here. So I would get up. I was like, I'm going to get up. I liked to be up a significant amount of time before him, but he was such an early riser. It was challenging, but I just committed to myself. I'm like, I'm getting up and I'm going to go sit on that cushion. If he wakes up, I'm going to bring him down. He's going to put his head in my lap and I'm going to sit. And that became my lifeline, and became non-negotiable. And then it was like at the end of the day, okay, I finally got him to sleep. I put on, do you know the binaural beats?
Yeah.
Yeah. Love the binaural beats. Put those on, legs up the wall, take a bath. I mean, it's these little things that really, really are critical in keeping us embodied and connected in our lives. When we can't step away for a significant amount of time, creating a little like mini retreat for yourself in your home, like, I don't know, like if you can get an hour or 2 hours and you're like, phone, no screens. I'm going to like do a practice. I'm going to, maybe rest, maybe write, put on some nice music. It's like make a nice cup of tea. I'm all about Tulsi ashwagandha tea is like my like savior. It's fabulous. So it's just so nourishing on every level. So it's like getting creative with your life. What can you do rather than focusing on what you cannot do, which, we tend to do. What can I do? What can I bring into my life? Is it a walk without my phone, after dinner or something, So it's like really taking a look at your individual life and what you can bring in that helps nourish you, that helps get you grounded and feel like, some self-care.
Self-love. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think for me too, it's very validating. I actually just recently had this aha moment where I was like, you know what? Why am I being so hard on myself sometimes, of feeling like I'm not doing it all because I'm, taking care of 2 little ones and doing this and doing that and doing that. And I just had this moment of like, you're not supposed to do it all. And it's just about these small moments. And I had that, and like it really very recently. And so you saying that right now, I'm like, okay, I got that. Yeah. And thank you for the validation. Like it is just about the pieces when they fit, if they can fit, and that's okay,
Yeah. There's never that moment where you're like, oh, I got everything done. Everything's perfect. Everything's great. I felt great. It does not exist. Right. So if we don't give ourselves that, like, I don't know, affirmation, validation, whatever it is, like really soak up those moments of connection for ourselves, then we're just always going to be seeking, we're always going to be living in this state of lack of like, oh, I don't have enough time to do that. but what did I do? I got a lot done. And you know what? I need to stay sane. So, that's a whole other very, very important piece of this puzzle. Like you need to stay sane in a very insane world while keeping your kids safe and healthy and all the things, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I am curious. You brought up a couple of things. One, your personal experience with your own body and just paying attention to something painful and just that going away, or the transformation of your client that was very, very powerful. What are some of the, give us a couple of maybe stories of those powerful transformations that you've seen through your work when someone is truly embodied, and what that meant in their lives and what happened?
Well, it's interesting because, we just were talking about how the micro moments of our lives are important. And to me, I'm all about sustainable healing. And so sometimes it's not this big transformation that you're seeing, but it's rather these little subtle moments of, I have a younger client right now who, she's so hard on herself and there's so many different things going on. And I just left her a message this morning, just being like, I'm so proud of you. Like it's these little steps and they're subtle, but they're really, really important and really, really powerful. And to me, it's like those subtle steps we keep taking, and then it starts to open things up. And then you really start to feel what it feels like to be in a completely different space. But I don't necessarily feel like we go from like here all the way over, because even with the other woman I was discussing, sharing her piece, like, she's I'm in community with her, and yes, she had this huge, like, I will call it epiphany, huge awakening at the retreat, and life still goes on, right? And so, but that didn't go away. Like that's in her, right? And so I think we all have those moments of like, yeah, like I got this, like, whew, I'm like coasting, and then something happens, right? And you're like, oh, maybe not. I feel like shit again, like whatever it is. And but remembering that the progress has not gone away. It's still in you.
Mm-hmm.
And it is up to us to remember. And I always say we forget to remember because sometimes regression is part of the path, so sometimes we'll be cruising along and then something happens that we're like, whoa, we got so triggered, whatever it is, or like had a health something or something with the relationships, and we kind of are like, oh my God, I totally regressed. Like I was doing so good. And, I mean, I see that all the time. I'm like, yeah, but it's all that is still in you. You have still gained these tools. You just forgot for a moment. And now you're going to move forward from this place of like, of embodiment. But the forgetting is almost an important part of moving forward, because we forget and we're like, oh, I don't want to do that anymore. Like I feel complete with that pattern, it just does not feel good to us, it does not feel aligned to us. And so therefore we take other steps forward, and it doesn't mean we're not going to fall backwards again. So I don't know if that completely answered your
Totally.
question. Yeah.
No, totally. And that reminded me of, we had a guest, Neil Donald Walsh, and he was talking about spiritual life and awakening and how thinking about life as a upward spiral. So we're finding ourselves in the same situations, but then we have different tools and different understanding and perspective in life, and we're somewhere else in our spiritual path. And so we get the opportunity to almost put in practice all of those tools that we learned and get over the hurdle a little bit quicker, a little bit easier. So I love that so
For
much.
sure.
It's just making that connection. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we're human.
Yeah.
So we're,
That's what it is.
that's just what it is. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say I really love that piece that you mentioned about the regression part, how that's such a normal part, and normalizing it, because
Yeah.
I hear that often too, of like, oh, like I feel like I just took one step forward, two steps back, you know, but
Mm-hmm.
it's actually part of the journey. And the more that we can normalize it being a part of the journey, I think the more that we can give ourselves grace and not be so hard on ourselves. Because I think that's the biggest thing, is that we then criticize ourselves, judge ourselves, like, "Ugh, look, like you failed, or you didn't do this
Mm-hmm.
enough, or whatever," you know, and it's
Yep.
just, yeah, it can create a whole thing. So thank you
Mm-hmm.
for that. That's huge.
Yeah. I mean, it is huge. You know, I feel like we are the ones that get in our own way, you know, and so much is like the stories we tell ourselves, you know, and so if we can loosen the reins, and I mean, in my experience, I think like the older we get, the more we're like, oh yeah, I'm not going down that road. Like that is just a waste of time and energy, you know, there's just no need. So yeah, you know, it's like if we're our worst critic, then like how can we expect anybody else to mirror anything differently to us, you know? So,
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. So as we kind of start to come to
Mhm.
the end of our conversation, even though I feel like I keep,
I know.
there's so much that I want to talk to you about, ask you about, but
Yeah. Yeah.
just one or two more questions. One is, what is some parting words that you feel called to share with our audience in terms of something that you feel, especially maybe navigating this time that we're in right now, or
Mhm.
anything else that you feel really called to share? What do you feel is a message that people need to hear right now?
Mm. You know, in this moment, there's so much about giving ourselves grace and each other to really acknowledge the magnitude of what is unfolding. For those of us who are paying attention, who are conscious, we cannot ignore what is going on. And it is critical for us to not become so swept up in it, because that's what they want. That's what the pull is, to become so overwhelmed by the destruction that we lose our power in some way. And so to me, it's a combination of staying in connection with others, like authentic connection. Like it is time to be real. Like take the armor, the shield, all of it down and be real with each other. Practices, self-care, essential, essential. And really understanding and knowing when you might have a limit, you know, where, okay, I got to tap out, you know, and letting it be okay. You know, like I said, like getting on the couch if you need to at 6. I know when you have little kids it's not that easy, but at 6, you know, I've been reading like
They'll find me on the
novel.
couch. That's the problem.
I know, I'm sorry. Maybe they can lie on the couch with you. But you know, it's like, what are some healthy outlets, you know, and I use that term loosely, healthy, but what helps you to move your energy? What helps you to get in your body? What helps you to feel connected? And it's like every day asking yourselves that. And then, you know, responding as much as you can. You know, maybe, you know what, I need to sleep for 2 days, but that's not an option. So instead, I'm going to carve out these little micro moments for myself. But we need to stay upright and connected, even if we have to retreat some.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing that. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
So powerful. And then the final question that I have for you is, where can people connect with you
Mm.
and learn more about your incredible retreats? Like, where can I sign up for one of those? And
I was feeling
um
that.
and just, where can we connect with you?
Yeah, I love that. Well, first of all, I only have 2 rooms left for my January retreat in Mexico, and it's an incredible group. A lot of women returning. So, beautiful spot. So, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
response me. Who knows?
Yeah. There you go.
Oh my God,
Exactly.
I would love that. So, my website is embodymylife.com. And I send out a week every week ish, just like a newsletter, just to stay connected, you know, always just trying to offer something that
Mhm.
is going to help at least one person, you know, and that's just always my focus. So I pour a lot into that. You can always schedule a 20-minute Zoom chat with me. I welcome it, as many as you need. Email is great. I'm relatively active on Instagram, and that is embody_life. And again, just same mission, just trying to just give some little gems to humanity to keep us all going. And the retreats they're fabulous. I mean, I only have one right now on the calendar. I'm kind of hanging back, just seeing what's going on. But January is a possibility. I have 2 rooms. And then this community that is in process. I did like a soft launch for September, and I am offering 50% off if you sign up in September. It's kind of like a founders, whatever, discount. And it includes, you can sign up for either, I mean, if you're virtual, there's 2 virtual dances a month, dances/circles. And if you're local, you can there's 4. There'll be 2 in person and 2 virtual. And then it also will feed into this community platform, which I will moderate, to make sure it does stay safe. But it's just an opportunity to stay connected. And my plan is to plug in different little, just little inspiration along the way, little wellness tips, to place to ask questions, just to stay in this, kind of flow of community. So that is called Embody and Rise community. And so it's a little vague on my website right now. So if you are interested, I suggest just reach out to me directly and I can point you in the right direction. So.
Amazing. I love that name, Embody and Rise.
I know, it just came to me. It's good.
Well, it was such a pleasure. We were looking forward to this conversation. So I'm so glad we got to just hang out with you for this little bit. And thank you so much. You've shared so many little things that I know are going to be so useful for our listeners. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really fun. I feel like we could go on and on and on. So
We could.
May this be the beginning of something else. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
So, thank you again.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you. And to our listeners who are tuning in, go check out we'll have all the links in the show notes so you guys can go connect with Alison, learn more. And once again, we want to say thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.